My parents moved into my house, took over every room, then pushed me and my son to the garage while letting my brother move in. To this day, I still don't know why they were upset when I called the police. My son Ethan asked the question, standing in the doorway between the kitchen and the mudroom, still in his school hoodie backpack half-zipped. He wasn't whining. He wasn't even mad. He was just trying to understand the math. "Dad," he said, eyes flicking past me to the living room. "Why does Uncle Mark live in our house and we're in the garage?" My mouth went dry so fast my tongue stuck to my teeth. In the living room, my mom had the TV on too loud. My dad was laughing at something on his phone. Uncle Mark, 34 years old, unemployed, living like a permanent guest, had his feet on my coffee table like it belonged to him. Mom didn't look up from the remote. "Because he deserves a better life," she said, like she was explaining bedtime. Ethan blinked once. His fingers tightened around the strap of his backpack. I felt my hands go cold. My brain did that stupid thing it does when it's trying to stay calm. It started counting. 1 mortgage, 1 deed, 1 kid, 1 garage. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't correct her. I just said, "Ethan, go wash your hands." He didn't move right away. He looked at me like he was waiting to see what kind of dad I was going to be today. My mom finally glanced over, annoyed. "Don't make it a thing, Michael." "I'm not," I said. Dad snorted. "Hear that, Linda? He's not making it a thing." Uncle Mark leaned back on the couch like he was watching a show. "Kid's dramatic." Ethan's face went tight. Not tears, just that small, careful expression kids get when they realize adults can be unfair and nobody is going to stop them. I kept my voice even. "We're moving next week." The remote paused mid-click. Mom's head snapped toward me. "What?" Dad laughed, full belly laugh, like I told a joke at his expense. "Where?" "To a cheap motel." Mark smiled. "Yeah, Mikey, you going to go live in your Tesla?" I walked to the entryway console. My console, the one I bought, the one I built, the one I watched them treat like set dressing, and opened the drawer. My keys were cold in my palm. I tossed them onto the counter. The fob hit the granite with a sharp clack. Ethan flinched. Dad squinted. "What's that?" I slid a folder out of my work bag, a thick one. The kind I use when I'm presenting numbers to people who think feelings can change reality. Inside were 2 things in plastic sleeves, a set of keys with a black tag that read DTLA Unit 4107 and a copy of the grant deed. I placed them on the counter right in front of my dad like I was putting down a final receipt at a register. "No," I said, "come enough to scare myself." "But you might. I'm the owner." My dad's smile faltered. "And you're just tenants." For a second, nobody spoke. Mom's mouth opened like she was going to laugh it off, but no sound came out. Uncle Mark sat up. "That's not funny," Ethan whispered almost to himself. "We're moving." I turned to him first. "Yeah, next week." Then I looked back at the adults in my house, and when they started talking over each other, denial, outrage, the same old family noise. I didn't scream. I picked up my son's backpack off the floor, took his hand, and walked back into the garage. Then I started packing. I'm Michael. I'm 39. I work as an investor, equities and derivatives on an investment exchange desk in California. I live off numbers, risk, and timing, which is probably why it took me too long to admit I was being played by the people who raised me. We were in Irvine, Orange County. The house is a 4-bedroom on a quiet cul-de-sac with a lemon tree out front and neighbors who never make eye contact unless they're walking a golden retriever. I bought it in 2021. I have the closing statement. I have the wire confirmation. I have the emails with escrow. I put the title in my name because I'm not an idiot, but I still let them move in. It started in February 2023. My dad called and did that exhausted voice he uses when he wants you to feel responsible for his feelings. "Mortgage is killing us," he said. "We just need a reset. A few months." My mom got on next. "It'll be good for Ethan to be near family. They promised it would be temporary. They promised it would help me too." I was freshly divorced then. Ethan was 7. I had split custody and I was trying to keep his routine stable while rebuilding my own. So I said yes. I told myself, it's family, it's temporary. I can handle a few months. I thought it was temporary. It wasn't. Within 2 weeks, the master bedroom was theirs. The guest room became Mark's room, and my son and I were just for now in the garage that had been converted into a barely legal living space. My mom called it cozy. She also called it fair. "Mark is going through a hard time," she'd say. Mark was always going through a hard time. His hard time lasted a decade and somehow always required other people's money, space, and patience. The pattern was simple. They took, I absorbed, they called it family helps. Three incidents made it crystal clear looking back. The first was the grocery thing. I bought groceries every Sunday. Actual food, not just snack junk. I'm the kind of man who can stare at candlestick charts for 10 hours, but I will lose my mind if there's no protein in the fridge. One week, I came home at 6:02 p.m. with 2 bags from Costco. I opened the fridge. Empty. Not we ate. Empty like someone moved out overnight. Mom walked in wiping her hands. Oh good. You're home. Where's the food, I asked. She didn't even blink. Mark took it to his friends. They were having people over. My food, I corrected. She smiled like I was being silly. It's all the same house. Ethan was behind me, small, quiet, watching. That night he asked me, do we have to ask to eat? I told him no. But the next week he started keeping granola bars in his backpack. Anyway, the second incident was the money contribution. My dad started calling it rent without ever saying rent. Your monthly contribution. He'd say like it was a membership fee to my own life. At first it was $500, then $900, then $1,200. When I said I'm already paying the mortgage, my mom said, don't nickel and dime your family. When I asked where the money was going, my dad would shrug. Utilities, wear and tear. Then one Friday, I came home early and saw an Apple Store bag on the table. Brand new iPad. Mark was setting it up. I stared at it. Who bought that? Mark didn't look guilty. He looked annoyed. I'd interrupted. Mom and Dad. My mom walked in cheerful. He needs it for job searching. I opened my banking app right there. My hands were steady, but my stomach felt like it was sliding. A Zelle transfer from me to my dad. 3 days earlier. $1,200. Memo contribution. I swallowed it because Ethan was there, because my mom was smiling like I was supposed to be proud of us. The third incident was the garage door lock. One night after a late market day, I came home at 9:47 p.m. Ethan was asleep on the fold-out couch. I tried the door between the garage and the house locked. I knocked. My mom opened it 2 in. Her face was irritated. You woke me. It's my house, I said quiet. She shrugged. Rules are rules. You don't come in after 9 unless you text. I stood there in the garage, my keys in my hand, listening to my own mother enforce a curfew on me in a property I owned. Ethan stirred behind me and pulled his blanket tighter. I remember thinking I'm teaching my kid to shrink. And I hated myself for it. The family language was always the same. Be flexible, don't make a scene. Mark just needs support. You're successful. You can handle it. Family is everything. It's funny how family is everything usually means you will give everything. By the time we got to that Tuesday night in the kitchen, I wasn't shocked by the cruelty. I was shocked my son finally said it out loud, because he deserved better than a garage and a lesson in silence. After I put Ethan to bed that night, I didn't go back into the house. I sat on the edge of the fold-out couch and listened to their laughter through the door. My brain started doing numbers again. How much money I'd contributed, how many times I'd apologized for existing, how many months I'd been telling myself it was temporary. At 10:31 p.m., my mom texted me. Mom, don't be dramatic, we can talk tomorrow. At 10:33 p.m., my dad followed. Dad, you embarrassed your mother. Mark is family. Stop acting like a landlord. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. Then I opened a new folder in my phone and named it House Receipts. I screenshotted everything. Bank transfers, mortgage autopay confirmations, the email from escrow with the subject line recording confirmation, a photo of the deed in my safe text where my dad called it your house when it benefited him and our home when it benefited him. The next morning, Wednesday, January 15th, 2026, I left early for work. I trade for a living. My job is literally don't panic. Don't get emotional. Make a plan. So I did what I do at work. I made a plan. Wave 1 came fast. Private pressure. Mom called at 9:08 a.m. I didn't pick up. She left a voicemail. Her voice was gentle. Injured, performative. Michael, this is not who you are. You're punishing us. Think about Ethan. Think about what you're teaching him. Dad called at 9:22 a.m. His voicemail was pure contempt. You think you're better than us? Because you've got money. You forget where you came from. Mark didn't call. Mark posted an Instagram story from my living room with a caption. Family drama is wild LL. I screen recorded it. At lunch, my sister, who usually stayed out of it, texted me one sentence. Sister Tara. They're saying you're going to throw them out, are you? I typed back. I'm moving out with Ethan. They can vacate by notice. I'm done. Then wave 2 hit. Practical harm. Thursday morning, I went to grab Ethan's passport from the lockbox in the hallway closet. I keep it there because I travel and I'm careful. The lockbox was gone. I stood there staring at the empty shelf like my brain refused to accept it. I walked into the house. Mom was at the table with her coffee like nothing was happening. "Where's the lockbox?" I asked. She didn't look up. "What lockbox? The one with Ethan's passport?" She sighed. "Why do you need it?" I felt my jaw tighten. "Because it's mine." Dad appeared in the doorway like he'd been waiting. "We put it somewhere safe," he said. "Where?" I asked. Mom took a sip of coffee. "You're not taking Ethan anywhere in a tantrum." There it was. They weren't just using my house. They were trying to control my child. My voice stayed calm because I could feel Ethan in the garage behind me, listening through the thin door. "Show me," I said. "Right now. Bring me the lockbox." Dad smiled like he was enjoying this. "No." I stared at him for a long second, then nodded once. "Okay," I said. "Then I'm documenting that you're withholding my son's legal documents." Mom's face tightened. "Don't talk like that." "Like what I asked. Accurate." That afternoon I called an attorney, not a dramatic "I'll sue you" call. A practical one. I gave him the facts. Owner-occupied property in my name, parents living there month to month, no written lease, adult relative occupying a room, me and my minor child effectively displaced into the garage, personal documents withheld. He asked one question that snapped everything into focus. "Do you want them out?" I looked at Ethan's small shoes lined up by the garage door. I thought about his question. "Why are we in the garage?" "Yes," I said, "legally." By Friday, I had paperwork. A 60-day notice to terminate tenancy addressed to my parents. A separate notice for Mark as an unauthorized occupant. A written demand for return of Ethan's documents. And instructions: serve it properly. Don't freestyle this. Don't give them wiggle room. Friday night at 6:40 p.m. I came home with pizza for Ethan because I didn't want him to feel like his life was collapsing. My mom was waiting at the garage door like a sentry. "You're really doing this?" she asked, voice tight. "I am," I said. Dad stepped behind her. "You can't evict your own parents. I can terminate a tenancy," I said. "And you're going to stop pretending you don't understand the difference." Mark wandered over, chewing gum like he was bored. "Bro, you're insane." I pulled the papers out of a manila envelope. Mom's eyes flicked over them. Her hands started to shake. Dad tried to take them out of my hand. I stepped back. "Don't," I said. He froze like he wasn't used to a boundary that didn't fold. Ethan stood behind me holding his pizza plate with both hands. He asked quietly, "Are we in trouble?" I crouched to his level. "No, we're leaving." He nodded once, too mature for 8, and went back into the garage without another word. That night, I made a list on my phone. What we take, what we replace, what we don't argue about. Saturday morning, I went to the bank and opened a new account in my name only. I moved my direct deposits. I canceled the contribution transfers. Saturday afternoon, I rented a small storage unit B114 off Barranca Parkway, and moved our box stuff out of the garage while they were in the house pretending I wasn't real. At 3:12 p.m., my mom sent a text. "Mom, you're breaking your father's heart." I didn't respond because that's when I stopped arguing and started documenting. The breaking point wasn't a scream or a fight, it was a police non-emergency call and an officer with a notepad. Monday, January 20th, 2026 at 8:05 a.m. I tried one more time. I asked politely. Calm voice, concrete, asked, "Bring me Ethan's passport right now." Dad leaned on the counter. "No." Mom crossed her arms. "You're not taking him away from his family." Mark laughed. "Maybe he should stay here. He's got a real home." Ethan was tying his shoes on the garage step. I saw his hands pause. He didn't look up, but his shoulders went tight. Something inside me went cold and clear. I pulled my phone out and hit record. Then I said, loud enough for the mic to catch, but calm enough to stay clean. "I'm the legal owner of this property. I am requesting the return of my minor child's passport and documents. You are refusing." "Correct." Dad's eyes narrowed. "Turn that off." "No," I said. Mom's voice got sharp. "Michael, stop. Answer the question," I said. Dad smirked. "Correct." I nodded once. Then I stepped outside, stood in my driveway, and called the Irvine Police Department non-emergency line. I didn't say kidnapping. I didn't use dramatic words. I said family member is refusing to return my minor child's passport and documents. I have proof. I need an officer to document and advise. They showed up at 9:01 a.m. Officer Ramirez, mid-30s, calm face, the kind of man who's seen every version of "it's a family thing." He listened while my parents tried to talk over me. Mom did the sweet voice. "We're just worried. He's unstable lately." Dad did the offended voice. "This is our home. He's trying to throw us out." Mark did the lazy voice. "This is stupid. It's family." I handed Officer Ramirez my folder. Deed copy. Mortgage statements. Ethan's birth certificate. Copy the video of my dad refusing. He flipped through it quietly. Then he looked up at my father and said one short sentence that changed the temperature in the room. "Sir, return the child's documents." My dad's smile vanished. Mom stared like she'd been slapped. Dad tried one more angle. "We put them somewhere safe." Officer Ramirez did not move. "Return them now." The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was panic disguised as pride. Dad walked to the hallway closet, yanked it open, and pulled out the lockbox like it had been there the entire time. He shoved it into my hands like he wanted it to hurt me. Officer Ramirez watched, then asked, "Is there anything else being withheld?" I looked at my parents and said very calmly, "Yes. They've displaced us into the garage while housing an additional adult occupant." Mom's face went red. "We didn't displace." Officer Ramirez held up a hand. "Ma'am?" Then he looked at me. "Do you have alternate housing arranged?" "Yes," I said. I didn't look at them when I said it, because I didn't want Ethan to see me enjoying anything. I just said the fact. "We're moving next week." The officer nodded. "If you're the owner and you want them out, you'll need to proceed through civil court if they don't leave after notice." "I already served notice," I said. "Attorney prepared. Proper service. Copies here." Officer Ramirez made a note. He gave me a case number. Then he looked at my father again one more time and said something that landed like a brick. "This isn't a family vote." After the officer left, my dad's mask cracked. He slammed his hand on the counter. "You called the police on us." I didn't flinch. "You withheld my child's passport," I said. Mom's eyes went wild. "Because you're unstable. You're making rash decisions." I nodded like I'd heard it. Then I did the irreversible step. I took Ethan's hand, walked to my car, and drove him to school myself. After drop-off, I went straight to my attorney's office and signed the final paperwork to move forward if they didn't vacate. Then I drove downtown. At 2:18 p.m., I met the building manager for Unit 4107 Glass Lobby Security Desk Keycard Access. At 2:31 p.m., I walked into the penthouse with Ethan's small overnight bag in my hand and my stomach still tight. Ethan stepped onto the hardwood floor and whispered, "It's big. It's safe," I said. I didn't tell him it was temporary or permanent. I didn't put adult anxiety on his shoulders. I just said the truth he needed. That night, I sent one group text to my family chat. "Mom, Dad, Mark, Tara." One sentence. "You have been served proper notice. All communication goes through my attorney. Do not contact Ethan's school. Do not enter my unit downtown. If you show up, I will treat it as trespass." Then I muted the chat. My phone lit up like a slot machine anyway. Mom crying emojis, Dad threats, Mark insults, Tara holy. I didn't answer because boundaries aren't speeches, they're actions. The first morning in the penthouse, Ethan woke up at 6:20 a.m. and padded out in his socks like he wasn't sure he was allowed. He walked into the kitchen, saw the island, and stared at the bowl of fruit I'd put out like I was trying to prove normal can still exist. He pointed at the window. The city was waking up. Cars light, people who had no idea my parents had been turning my life into a garage. "Dad," he said softly, "are we allowed to live here?" My throat burned. "Yes," I said, "we are." He nodded like he was filing it away as a new rule. Then he asked, "Can I put my backpack by the door?" "Yeah," I said. "That's your spot." He put it down carefully, like placing something fragile. A week later, exactly like I told him, we moved the rest. I hired movers. I didn't ask my parents for permission to enter rooms in my own property. I walked through with the movers and my attorney on the phone. My parents stood in the hallway, furious and stunned, like they couldn't believe I was acting like an adult with legal rights. Mom tried the last tactic. She showed up at the penthouse lobby with a cake on February 2nd, 2026 at 5:46 p.m. According to the security log, the building emailed me. Security called my phone. "Sir, a woman says she's your mother." Ethan was doing homework at the counter. He looked up, eyes wide. I didn't lie to him. "That's Grandma." I said. He swallowed. "Do we have to see her?" "No," I said, "we don't." I picked up the phone and told security, "She is not allowed up. Please ask her to leave." Mom started crying in the lobby. Loud public performative. I could hear it faintly through the speaker. "Michael," she yelled. "I brought cake. You're being cruel." I kept my voice level. "You can leave it at the desk. I'm not coming down." Then I hung up. Ethan exhaled like he'd been holding his breath. That night, we ate dinner in peace. Just the two of us. No shouting, no sarcasm, no family rules. 2 weeks later, my dad sent an email to my attorney with the subject line apology. It was 3 paragraphs of blaming me for being cold, 1 line about misunderstandings, and a final sentence that made me actually laugh once quietly in my empty kitchen. "We expect to be welcome back when you cool down." I didn't respond because this wasn't a mood. It was a line. Ethan stopped asking permission to breathe after a month. He started humming again while he made cereal. He started inviting friends over without looking at me first, like he was checking if it was safe. One night he said, "Dad, I like our house." I corrected him gently. "This is our home," I said. He smiled. "Yeah, our home." My parents did eventually move out after the notice, after the follow-up filings, after my attorney made it clear I wasn't bluffing. Mark disappeared the second it became inconvenient. Of course he did. And my mother? My mother still tells people I abandoned my family. I don't argue with her version anymore. I live in mine because here's the boundary I kept, and I'm keeping it. Access to me is not a family right. And the moral is simple. The kind you don't understand until you've watched your child learn to shrink. If someone needs you small to feel powerful, they don't love you. They use you. So, no, I'm not available for that. This story is about the moment your child asks a question that forces you to see what you've been normalizing and the cold clarity when you finally choose his future over their comfort. Michael isn't dramatic. He's a traitor who lives in risk assessment and control. For months, he absorbed his family's invasion because he'd been trained to believe family helps. Mint he gives, and they take. His parents didn't ask to stay temporarily. They colonized his home, displaced his son into a garage, and called it fairness. When his mother told Ethan that Uncle Mark deserves a better life while the child slept on a fold-out couch, she wasn't confused. She was announcing the hierarchy. Mark's comfort mattered more than Ethan's dignity. The garage wasn't just a room, it was a lesson. Every night, Michael let his son sleep there. He taught him his needs were negotiable and adults could be unfair. When Ethan asked, "Why are we in the garage?" he wasn't complaining. He was trying to understand the math of a system designed to erase him. Michael's brilliance was documentation. He didn't scream or argue feelings. He gathered receipts, bank transfers, the deed videos of his father refusing documents. When his parents withheld Ethan's passport to prevent escape, they crossed from exploitation to control. The officer's line, "This isn't a family vote," shattered their illusion that guilt could override legal reality. What this story teaches us, when someone needs you small to feel powerful, they don't love you. They use you. Michael's parents wanted a resource they could guilt into submission while elevating their unemployed son above their own grandson. Your child watches how you let people treat you and learns what to accept. Ethan kept granola bars in his backpack and asked permission to put his bag down. Michael didn't just save himself, he saved his son from a lifetime of shrinking. Family is not permission to colonize someone's life. They moved in temporarily, displaced his child, controlled food, demanded money, and withheld documents when he tried to leave. That's not struggle. That's occupation. Boundaries enforced by lawyers aren't cruelty. They're translation for people who mistake kindness for weakness.